The Rhetorical Situation by Lloyd F. Bitzer, Part 3. Number 4. The exigence and the complex of persons, objects, events, and relations which generate rhetorical discourse are located in reality, are subjective and publicly observable historical facts in the world we experience, are therefore available for scrutiny by an observer or critic who attends to them. To say the situation is objective, publicly observable, and historic means that it is real or genuine, that our critical examination will certify its existence. Real situations are to be distinguished from sophistic ones, in which, for example, a contrived exigence is asserted to be real, from spurious situations in which the existence or alleged existence of constituents is the result of error or ignorance, and from fantasy in which exigence, audience, and constraints may all be the imaginary objects of a mind at play. The rhetorical situation, as real is to be distinguished also from a fictive rhetorical situation. The speech of a character in a novel or play may be clearly required by a fictional rhetorical situation, the situation established by the story itself. But the speech is not genuinely rhetorical, even though considered in itself, it looks exactly like a courtroom address or a Senate speech. It is realistic, made so by fictive context. But the situation is not real, not grounded in history. Neither the fictive situation nor the discourse generated by it is rhetorical. We should note, however, that the fictive rhetorical discourse within a play or novel may become genuinely rhetorical outside fictive context, if there is a real situation for which the discourse is a rhetorical response. Also, of course, the play or novel itself may be understood as a rhetorical response having poetic form. Number 5. Rhetorical situations exhibit structures which are simple or complex and more or less organized. A situation structure is simple when there are relatively few elements which must be made to interact. The fishing expedition is a case in point. There's a clear and easy relationship among utterances, the audience constraints, and exigence. Franklin D. Roosevelt's brief declaration of war speech is another example. The message exists as a response to the one clear exigence, easily perceived by one major audience, and the one overpowering constraint is the necessity of war. On the other hand, the structure of a situation is complex. When many elements must be made to interact, practically any presidential political campaign provides numerous complex rhetorical situations. A situation, whether simple or complex, will be highly structured or loosely structured. It is highly structured when all of its elements are located and readied for the task to be performed. Malinowski's example, the fishing expedition, is a situation which is relatively simple and highly structured. Everything is ordered to the task to be performed. The usual courtroom case is a very good example of a situation which is complex and highly structured. The jury is not a random and scattered audience, but a select and concentrated one. It knows its relation to judge, law, defendant, counsels. It is instructed in what to observe and what to disregard. The judge is located and prepared. He knows exactly his relation to jury, law, counsels, defendant. The counsels know the ultimate object of their case. They know what they must prove. They know the audience and can easily reach it. The situation will be even more highly structured if the issue of the case is sharp, the evidence decisive, and the law clear. On the other hand, consider a complex but loosely structured situation. William Lloyd Garrison preaching abolition from town to town. He is actually looking for an audience and for constraints. Even when he finds an audience, he does not know that it is a genuinely rhetorical audience, one able to be mediator of change. Or consider the plight of many contemporary civil rights advocates who fail to locate compelling constraints in rhetorical audiences, abandon rhetorical discourse in favor of physical action. Situations may become weakened in structures due to complexity or disconnectedness. A list of causes include these. A single situation may involve numerous exigents. B, exigence is in the same situation may be incompatible. C, two or more simultaneous rhetorical situations may compete for our attention, as in some parliamentary debates. D. At a given moment, persons comprising the audience of situation A may also be the audience of situations B, C, and D. E. The rhetorical audience may be scattered and uneducated regarding its duties and powers, or it may dissipate. F. Constraints may be limited in number and force, and they may be incompatible. This is enough to suggest the sorts of things which weaken the structures of situations. Number 6. Finally, rhetorical situations come into existence, then either mature or decay, or mature and persist. Conceivably, some persist indefinitely. In any case, situations grow and come to maturity. They evolve to just the time when a rhetorical discourse would be most fitting. In Malinowski's example, there comes a time in the situation where the leader of the fishermen should say, "Throw the nets." In the situation generated by the assassination of the president, there was a time for giving descriptive accounts of this scene in Dallas, later a time for giving eulogies. In a political campaign, there is a time for generating an issue and a time for answering a charge. Every rhetorical situation, in principle, evolves to a precipitous moment for the fitting rhetorical response. After this moment, most situations decay. We will have the experience of creating a rhetorical response when it is too late to make it public. Some situations, on the other hand, persist. This is why it is possible to have a body of truly rhetorical literature. The Gettysburg Address, Burke's speech to the electors of Bristol, Socrates' Apology. These are more than historical documents, more than specimens for stylistic or logical analysis. They exist as rhetorical responses for us precisely because they speak to situations which persist, which are in some measure universal. Due to either the nature of things or convention, or both, some situations recur. The courtroom is the locus for several kinds of situations generating the speech of accusation, the speech of defense, the charge to the jury. From day to day, year to year, comparable situations occur, prompting comparable responses. Hence, rhetorical forms are born and a special vocabulary, grammar, and style are established. This is true also of the situation which invites the inaugural address of a president. The situation recurs, and because we experience situations and the rhetorical response to them, a form of discourse is not only established but comes to have a power of its own. The tradition itself tends to function as a constraint upon any new responses in the form. Section 4. In the best of all possible worlds, there would be communication perhaps, but no rhetoric, since exigence would not arise. In our real world, however, rhetorical exigence abound. The world really invites change, change conceived and effected by human agents who quite properly address a mediating audience. The practical justification of rhetoric is analogous to that of scientific inquiry. The world presents objects to be known, puzzles to be resolved, complexities to be understood, hence the practical need for scientific inquiry and discourse. Similarly, the world presents imperfections to be modified by means of discourse, hence the practical need for rhetorical investigation and discourse. As a discipline, scientific method is justified philosophically insofar as it provides principles, concepts, and procedures by which we come to know reality. Similarly, rhetoric as a discipline is justified philosophically insofar as it provides principles, concepts, and procedures by which we effect the valuable change in reality. Thus, rhetoric is distinguished from the mere craft of persuasion, which, although it is a legitimate object of scientific investigation, lacks philosophical warrants as a practical discipline.